I moved into the Riverside Commons townhouse community specifically because it advertised high-speed fiber internet and a quiet professional atmosphere. As a tech consultant who works remotely and occasionally streams educational content about cybersecurity on my channel, reliable internet wasn't just a convenience, it was my livelihood. The homeowners association seemed reasonable enough during the purchasing process. The president, a woman named Karen Mitchells, had been friendly during the walkthrough, mentioning she worked from home too and understood the needs of remote professionals. That friendliness evaporated exactly 2 weeks after I moved in. I was 3,000 viewers deep into a live stream about network security vulnerabilities when my doorbell started ringing. Not once. Continuously. I muted my microphone and checked my phone to see my Ring camera footage. Karen stood on my porch, her finger pressed firmly on the doorbell, staring directly into the camera with a tight-lipped smile. I unmuted long enough to tell my viewers I'd be right back, then went to the door. "Karen, I'm in the middle of a work call. Is something wrong?" I asked, keeping my voice level despite my frustration. She looked past me into my house, her eyes narrowing at the professional lighting setup visible in my office. "A work call? It looks like you're making videos. That's a commercial activity." Section 12, Paragraph 4 of the HOA Covenant states that no commercial activities may be conducted from residential properties. I blinked at her, processing this absolutely insane interpretation of standard HOA language. "Karen, I'm a tech consultant. I work from home. That clause is about running storefronts or having clients come to the property, not about where someone's computer is located while they work. Before you hear how this escalated into something absolutely wild, do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe to KarenEatWorld because trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. I promise you, this revenge is going to be absolutely legendary." She pulled out a printed copy of the covenant, tabbed and highlighted like she'd been preparing for trial. "Commercial activity is commercial activity. I've been watching, and you have a lot of equipment in there. Professional lights, cameras, microphone. That's commercial equipment." The way she emphasized, watching, sent a chill down my spine. "I'll need you to cease all commercial activities immediately, or I'll be forced to fine you. $250 per day until compliance." I took a deep breath, still trying to be reasonable. "Karen, half the neighborhood works from home. Jim 3 doors down is literally a wedding photographer who edits photos in his house. Maria across the street runs an online bookkeeping business. This clause isn't meant to prohibit remote work." Her smile got wider, more rigid. "If they're conducting commercial activities, I'll be addressing them too. But right now, I'm addressing you. 24 hours to remove all commercial equipment, or the fines begin." She turned and walked away before I could respond, her phone already up to her ear. I stood there for a moment, absolutely bewildered, then returned to my stream. My viewers had heard everything through my still active microphone. The chat was exploding. Dozens of people were already screen recording the interaction, and someone had clipped the Ring camera audio. Within an hour, the clip had 15,000 views on social media. "Insane HOA Karen tries to ban remote work" was trending in several tech communities. The next morning, I received a formal notice from the HOA. Not only was I being fined for commercial activity, but Karen had apparently done a walk-around of my property and found 6 additional violations. My front door wreath was a half-inch too wide according to the Decorative Standards section. My car, a perfectly normal sedan, was parked improperly because it was 3 inches over an unmarked boundary she claimed existed on my driveway. My mailbox flag was the wrong shade of red. It went on and on. Each violation carried a $50 fine. The letter ended with a note that I was not in compliance with community standards and would be reported to the township if I didn't immediately rectify all issues. I did what any reasonable person would do. I consulted a lawyer. She laughed when she read the violations. This is harassment. None of these would hold up if contested. The commercial activity clause definitely doesn't apply to standard remote work, and these other violations are either completely fabricated or absurdly nitpicky. You can fight this. But fighting would mean months of disputes, possible legal fees, and continued harassment. I asked if there were other options. That's when things got interesting. My lawyer asked about my finances, my willingness to make this problem go away permanently, and whether I'd be opposed to creative solutions. I told her I had resources, and I was very motivated. She made some calls. Meanwhile, Karen escalated. She started showing up during my streams. Not just ringing the doorbell, but standing in her yard, which was partially visible in my office window background, holding signs. Commercial activity violates HOA rules. Stop breaking the law. My viewers found it hilarious. The clips went even more viral. I was gaining thousands of subscribers from the drama, which only seemed to infuriate her more. Then she filed a formal complaint with the Township Zoning Board, claiming I was running an illegal business from a residentially zoned property. That required me to take a day off work to attend a hearing, where I had to explain to board township officials that I was simply an employee working remotely, not operating a business. They dismissed her complaint immediately, but she'd accomplished her goal of wasting my time and money. The breaking point came when she somehow got my internet shut off. I later found out she'd called my provider claiming to be me, saying I was moving and needed to cancel service. It took 3 days to get reconnected, during which I missed 2 client deadlines and had to cancel 3 scheduled streams. That cost me actual money, damaged my professional reputation, and she knew it. When I confronted her, she simply smiled and said maybe I should consider getting an office outside the community if my hobby was so important. My lawyer called that evening with interesting news. She'd done extensive research into Riverside Commons. The HOA owned several common areas, including a small park, a retention pond, and notably, a community center building that sat on a separate parcel. That parcel, for complicated reasons involving the original developer's bankruptcy, wasn't actually owned by the HOA itself but by a separate holding company. That holding company had defaulted on property taxes. The parcel was going up for tax sale. How much? I asked. She named a figure that was substantial but not unreasonable given my consulting income and savings. And if I bought it? She explained that the community center lease would expire, the HOA would lose their meeting space, and more importantly, there was an easement attached to that parcel. An easement that granted access rights to the walking path that connected the northern section of townhouses, where Karen lived, to the main road. Without that easement, residents of the northern section would have to drive an extra 2 miles around to reach the highway. But that wasn't the beautiful part. The beautiful part was in the original development covenant, the one that established the HOA. There was a clause, buried in the legal language, that stated the HOA president must reside in a property with direct accessible connection to primary community ingress and egress routes. It was meant to prevent the president from being someone who lived in a theoretical future expansion phase. But it could be interpreted differently. I bought the parcel at the tax sale for $43,000. Then I hired a survey company to document the exact boundaries and easement terms. Then I hired a fencing company. The most expensive, beautiful, completely code-compliant wrought iron fence they could construct. 8 feet tall, as permitted by township ordinance for commercial properties, which the community center parcel was zoned as. The fence would run along the entire border of the property, and yes, that would block the walking path that provided the northern section shortcut access. I also hired an attorney who specialized in HOA law. Not to fight the HOA, but to interpret their governing documents with exquisite precision. We filed a formal challenge to Karen's position as president, citing that she no longer met the residency requirements as her home no longer had direct accessible connection to primary routes. The indirect route, the 2-mile detour, didn't qualify as direct by any reasonable interpretation. Karen didn't know any of this was happening until the fence company showed up. I was running a scheduled stream, a normal cybersecurity tutorial, when my Ring camera caught her marching across the community center parking lot toward the construction crew. My viewers watched in real time as she screamed at the workers, demanding to know who authorized this. The foreman, a patient man I'd briefed extensively, simply showed her the permits and property documentation. I watched her face cycle through confusion, anger, and then the beginning of understanding as she read the property owner's name. Mine. She turned and stared directly at my townhouse, visible in the distance. Then she was storming toward my door again. This time, I didn't pause my stream. I simply adjusted the camera angle so my viewers could see the door, and I put the Ring camera footage on my second monitor, visible in the frame. She pounded on the door. Not knocked. Pounded. Open this door right now. You cannot build a fence there. That's community property. I calmly explained, through the still closed door, and for the benefit of my 4,000 live viewers, that it was actually my property, as documented by the county and permitted by the township. That path has been used by residents for 12 years. You can't just block it. Her voice was reaching a pitch that was honestly impressive. I explained the concept of easements and how they can be terminated or modified by property owners, especially when the original easement terms had expired with the previous owner's default. She switched tactics. This is retaliation. This is because of the violations. I'll sue you. I pointed out that I'd purchased property at a public tax sale and was developing it within all legal parameters, and that if she felt she had grounds for a lawsuit, she was welcome to pursue it, though I suspected my attorney would have some interesting counterclaims about harassment. That's when I had my lawyer, who was coincidentally present for this very moment, hand me the formal HOA challenge documents. I opened the door just enough to pass them through. You'll also want to review these. The board will be voting on your removal as president at next week's emergency meeting. Seems there's some question about whether you meet the residency requirements anymore. I watched her face as she read through the documents. Confusion first. Then comprehension. Then absolute rage mixed with something that looked like panic. She understood. The northern section residents, her neighbors, would revolt when they realized their shortcut was gone, and it was because of the fence. The fence that existed because I owned the property. The property I bought because it went to tax sale. None of it was illegal. All of it was perfectly executed. But she didn't know the final piece yet. I waited until her eyes met mine, still streaming to thousands of people. Oh, and Karen? Section 12, Paragraph 4? The Commercial Activity Clause? My attorney found the HOA board meeting minutes from 2009 where that language was discussed. Want to know what commercial activity it was meant to prevent? Home-based daycares and automotive repair shops. Specifically, it's in the notes. So all those fines you've been issuing me, they were based on a completely incorrect interpretation of the covenant. I'll be expecting refunds. With interest. Her mouth opened and closed silently. The paper trembled in her hands. She looked at the fence construction, visible over my shoulder. At my camera setup, still streaming. At the legal documents. Back to my face. The full scope of what had happened was crashing down on her. She'd harassed someone with the resources, patience, and technical knowledge to utterly dismantle her petty kingdom. Someone who documented everything. Someone whose viewers had recorded everything. Someone who just removed her power, blocked her access, and exposed her abuse of authority in the most public, legal, and permanent way possible. If you enjoyed watching Karen's world crumble as much as I enjoyed making it happen, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. Like this video and drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next story. Thanks for watching KarenEatWorld, where entitled people get exactly what they deserve.